This is the theme of Setback, an interview with a hitman, Victor's vengeance, select frames. So now that the writer director has unpacked all of those decisions that Victor has made, using Victor as a character to talk about his narrative history, the twists and turns, the betrayals, meeting Bethesda, falling in love with her, saving her, rescuing her, and almost her rescuing him. The interviewer is asking him about whether or not he will become a good father, his relationship with Bethesda. He's basically saying we don't have a plan, or he doesn't have a plan, but we'll work this out together. And then the interviewer asks, what kind of father do you think you will be? He said, a strong, good one, right? And you almost have to wonder the fact that he's interested in becoming this, that maybe this has been his goal the whole time, of family. But before he can really enjoy this whole idea of becoming a father and being with Bethesda and becoming a family, he has one more goal he needs to complete. He has been found out. He has been discovered. Now, he doesn't know it is Bethesda who has ratted him out. And interestingly enough, he was looking for Rafa, the snitch, to give to the second mob boss in order to get in to a new system, when it was also Bethesda who ratted him out, who was a snitch on his behalf. And so this is their discussion, going back and forth about him becoming a father, having a family, etc. And so this is where he's been discovered. The men are going to come to this location. We don't know yet by whom, but we do know that he's going to have to sort of eliminate his enemies. If he's going to move forward with Bethesda, he's got to do it. And so we have this enemy who is maxed. We're going to find out who the person is. But this is a person who is willing and able and capable to take down Victor. And Victor takes him down. So Victor knew that he was exposed. Now, we don't get how Victor knew. Interestingly enough, I didn't think about it until I got to this particular frame. We don't know how he found out that he was found out or discovered. Regardless, we are forced to skip along with the character and then just try to piece it together later. So he takes tools of the enemy, right, to listen in on anyone who may be speaking. And that basically gives him instructions, because remember, he's in a setback right now. Even if he knew that they were coming, he's still in a setback. And so he's going to need instructions to get out of this particular setback. So now that we have Caesar, one of his childhood friends, right? Caesar was sent to kill Victor, and they are in conversation. And so this is 20 years later. Victor recounts. And Victor is asking him, how did you find me? And Caesar goes into multiple conversations, right? He talks about Marku. He talks about, different, he talks about trafficking. He talks about all different types of conversations, right? But basically, how did you find me? And so they engage in their own conversation, of course, because he's not going to necessarily shoot Caesar so quickly as he would anyone else, because he has to find that information. He has to gather intel, right? And so talking to Caesar and having a conversation with him is going to get him that. Plus, it's a reunion. It is symbolic of a reunion. I mean, you see somebody you haven't seen in so many years, you want to know what's going on with them, even if you know you're about to kill them. And so Victor looks at him with that kind of sort of stare that he gives, half blank face, half focused. And I thought this angle was interesting in terms of consideration, because it's almost like a fourth wall is breaking, that the two men are having a discussion, and then the camera is having a discussion in terms of taking the shots, right? The close-up shots. But it's almost like we are entering this conversation too, the breaking of the fourth wall to kind of see what's going on. You could also look at it as possibly a mob boss having a sort of zoomed in view, or zoomed out view of their discussion as well. And you can look at it as maybe security, taking time to really listen in on what's being discussed. So we have Victor pointing the gun at Cesar. Remember, this is his childhood friend, and it has come to this, that he is pointing the gun at Cesar. But before this happens, before Victor finally shoots Cesar, Cesar tells him that Trafficant knows that he is alive, that knows that Victor is alive, and that Cesar is the only one who knows that Victor is alive. And he also also puts forth the same idea that Sergey suggested or said, that he had no choice, he didn't want to do it. And then he says to Victor, "We're brothers." But he also says something that is a little contrary. Same old Victor, never know when to back down. And it has some of the same elements of speak that Sergey was basically suggesting, that Victor has no attachment, and that he's just, the type of person who's going to get it done. And so Cesar is essentially saying the exact same thing, that same old Victor, never know when to back down. But how is it that how does Cesar expect Victor to back down from an attempted kill? You expect Victor to just take it and, take being betrayed, take being assassinated? Is that what you're suggesting? Because if you cared about Victor in the same way that that Sergey said, suggested that he cared about Victor, why didn't you come with your regular face and not a mask? Why didn't you come with your regular dress, your regular garb, not as an assassin? Warn Victor and say, Trafficant knows that you are alive. I'm the only one who knows that you are alive. Let's try to get you out of town. So no one has any sort of loyalty to Victor. If you care about him so much, you're calling him your brother, but you have come to kill him, right? It's sort of like that Cain and Abel. I'm really here for you, but I'm actually going to kill you under the sun, right? And so Victor makes an interesting point, that he says that he could have killed Trafficant anytime. Even when Trafficant sent Sergey to kill Victor, he could have killed him anytime. Victor says, I chose not to kill Trafficant out of loyalty. That's why I didn't kill him. It wasn't that I was afraid. I didn't leave the country because I was afraid. I chose not to kill him out of loyalty. So then you have to think about Victor's statement. So he had more loyalty to Trafficant to not kill him than any loyalty to Sergey in killing him, right? Because he could have said to Sergey in that moment, let's run away together. Let's flee the country together so I don't have to kill you, right? But, Victor is suggesting the same thing that Cesar and Sergey suggested, I had no other choice. I had to do it. I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it. So he's going to eventually kill him here. And so he shoots him. Um, um, and this is a childhood friend, the same person that he was playing with rocks in the courtyard, the exact same person. You know, it's interesting too that when they were playing in the courtyard and the two bullies came after Victor, none of the friends stepped in to try to fight the other bullies. Now, you know, once you are triggered in certain environments, and you've been bullied multiple times, it is hard to fight, right? But no one valued Victor enough, because it still would have been 4-on-2, even though those were big guys. It still would have been 4-on-2. Somebody could have picked up something to knock them out, but nobody valued Victor enough to jump to his defense, in the same way that no one valued Victor enough in his own family to cover him and help him, right? In the same way that Sergey didn't value Victor enough to say, I can't kill him. I'd rather die myself, or I'd rather flee the country. And in the same way that Cesar, who's calling Victor his brother, didn't value Victor enough to say, I can't kill him. See, all these people, they make all of these different statements, but they don't back up their own statements. They're not even really loyal to their own statements. So I thought it was interesting that Victor said, I chose not to kill Trafficant out of loyalty. And it has been this way for many years, for however long he has been in this other country. It's been that way. So he's forced to return back to his country, uh, Bucharest, Romania. So he returns, and this is where he's going to see Marco. He's coming through a door. Now, this door is different from the door that he left out of when he was younger. He's coming now, 20 years later, as an adult. And he has had such a narrative history prior to coming through this door. If you think about once he opens this door, and we've already had exposure to what he was as a child and what he revealed to the interviewer and to the viewing audience. And if you look at sort of like this front part of him, but envision the back of him and all of those steps from the back, right? All of those experiences, the whole narrative history, and all that suggests, you know, what is behind him. It's not like he's walking away from it now in this sense. It's just that he has to return home to settle old business. He has no other choice but to reveal himself. Otherwise, he would have stayed wherever he was, and he would have continued to operate with the kind of standards he was operating with in terms of loyalty. He's had loyalty to all these people, but they haven't had loyalty to him. So him coming through this door is coming back to his past, but also the narrative history that is in back of him, that is also connected to his childhood, but also connected to everything he has done up until the age you see him now. So he goes into his old apartment, and I think this might be his bedroom. I'm not quite sure, but this is the way it looks. You know, it's interesting to me how we have to assume that this is a different landlord and not the mob system that controls this apartment complex, these projects. But it's always very interesting to me how the mob, criminal elements, gangs, hoods, all that, they have a way of trying to control the area, but they won't keep the area up. They won't keep the area up. They won't keep the buildings up, but they want to own it and own you at the same time. So I'm quite sure that a lot of memories are sort of flooding his mind right now, his childhood, the many doors that he had to go in and out of, right? And so now he's going to see Marco. And we get an idea of Marco. And remember, Cesar was suggesting in his speech to Victor that you either be the motherfucker or you get motherfucked, like Marku. And Marku is motherfucked in the sense that he could have chosen to become a mob enforcer, but he didn't, and he chose the life that he's in right now. And so look at how he looks. Look at how he is. He's not anywhere advanced as we are as mob enforcers, right? He talks about how, his weight. He talks about how he looks, how bad he looks, etc. So Mark, who is coming in, and he's one of the childhood friends who was out there on the courtyard. So they basically have a conversation, and Victor is asking about his mother, and he asks, "Where is she?" And Marku says, "I'm sorry." About a year later, she had died. And then he talks about the two bullies that they all grew up with, and how they took over when Victor left, and then Victor actually kills them. So we see some emotion in him when Marku tells Victor about the death of his mother, how she passed about a year after he left when he was a child. So there is some it's the same kind of, probably the same kind of emotion that you saw when he was forced to kill Sergei. When he realizes that Sergei is going to kill him and that he was sent to kill him. And so it's that same kind of emotion. No real tear coming down his face in the same way that it came down when he was talking to Sergei, but there's emotion nonetheless. And so there's a kindness that he shows to Marku. He trusts Marku. It's interesting enough, if he ever did decide to have his own mob business, I'm quite sure that he would trust Marku. But there is a kindness to him in terms of looking at him, holding his face, and then he's going to have to leave. So he takes his gun, and we haven't really seen him use his gun in a while, and he's going to now go and shoot the bullies who used to bully him. And so they are in this room. He shoots them, and then we see the back of him, and he's actually entering the restaurant to visit with Trafficant. And so he's going through a door. He's going into this cafe rather, and the back of him, we know what he has just done, right? But this back of him still says a lot about where he has been as well. So entering this cafe comes with a purpose, and he says something to Trafficant about Franco. Franco is still alive. Whether he stays that way is up to him. Trafficant is a father. And so we don't know that Victor has kidnapped Franco. We don't get that storyline. We only get the statement that Victor makes to Trafficant at the table, that Franco is alive, and whether he stays that way, it is up to you. So Trafficant here is that former boss who found out that he was still alive from Alexei, and then Alexei is the one who got the information from Bethesda that we will find out much later. So they are having their conversation, and Victor is essentially asking, "How did you find out?" And Trafficant is saying, "I'm surprised." Surprises you the kind of reach that we have. And he talks about how Alexei is working for Interpol, and basically he's the one who kind of discovers that Victor is still alive. So they continue to have their conversation, especially about Franco, and Trafficant here is saying that Victor was more like a son to him than Franco. And he's basically appealing to Victor in like a father-son way, but it's also an act as well, because if he was much more like a son to him, why send someone to kill him? Why send Cesar to kill Victor? If Victor was more like a son to him than his own son, Franco, then why send someone to kill him? But he does go into detail about how Franco was weak and lacked any discipline, and he didn't have strength. And Franco is no different than the guy that we see with the second boss man, Kovacs, the second lieutenant. He's exactly the same way, weak, lacks any real discipline, no real strength. And so Trafficant is saying that we share the same kind of. He's basically suggesting that Victor and Trafficant here, they both share the same kind of will, if you will, same kind of loyalty, same kind of strength, same kind of discipline. And Trafficant is saying, let's bury the past. And Victor is saying, okay, what about the hit? And the hit is canceled. And Trafficant is saying, well, I always knew you were special, stone cold. And he makes a point about Sergei being just a foot soldier. He does what he is told. That Victor is more of a thinker versus a doer, whereas Sergei is more of a doer versus a thinker. And you kind of see that when you see Sergei, and even his attempt to wear a suit and look important, he's still much more of a doer than he is a thinker. And that's why Victor was asking, so how did you get Sergei to do it, right? He's the one that brought Victor up, raised him up. So how were you able to get Sergei to do it? And it's Trafficant who basically says that Sergei was no different than a foot soldier. And so Victor, as much as someone is full of crap and that they're lying and you can't trust them, there's a part of you that still throws off this kind of look. Like part of you kind of believes what they're saying, but part of you wants to give off this face that you don't believe what they're saying, right? And so here, there's some anger behind his eyes. There's some anger in even his cheekbones, even in his ears. And Trafficant's soft words are getting to him. But he has to force himself to remember that he's sitting in this seat simply because Trafficant is the one who sends Cesar to kill him. And so he has to put on the type of face that is still stone cold, stone faced, so he can get the job done. Now, here he is not under an assignment to kill Trafficant. He has to put himself under assignment. And when he does kill Trafficant under the table, that's the outsider. That's the word enough that he uses in the kitchen that is still perpetuating itself and shifting the narrative and creating a whole narrative history for himself, that he just doesn't want to participate anymore in this mob business. And this is the lighter. So, and it's, I think, the lighter from Franco. And it's essentially the same type of lighter that Sergei sends Victor's mother in the envelope with the money, basically telling her that her husband is dead. And this lighter is no different. He says to Trafficant that he will stay alive, and it's up to him. But I'm assuming that if he took the lighter from Franco, that means that Franco is actually really dead. So we have the gun come out, and Victor is about to shoot him. And Victor actually does shoot Trafficant, which is shocking to him. And Trafficant, just before he is shot, he's saying one cannot change one's nature. And that's a counter argument to Victor, who now wants to, who has framed himself as an outsider and actually wants to exit the business. So it's almost like Trafficant discerned something in Victor that wanted to be out, that wanted to get out. But in making the statement, one cannot change one's nature, Trafficant is basically suggesting you can't get out, right? You can't get out. And so, who is the one who proves out in the end? You know, it's kind of hard to say, because even though Victor kills the interviewer, but Bethesda kills Victor, and so we don't really know in the end what he would have become, especially if he ever would have become a good father or a good family man. So he kills him with real intent here, and keeps his eye on him, and then he leaves. So Trafficant is sitting there shocked. Victor gets up and walks out. And then there's a cut to Alexei. Alexei, remember, is one of his childhood friends as well. And so Alexei is the one who works for Interpol. He's the one who received the video feed from Bethesda. And Alexei decides to give that over to Trafficant as a way for him to get out, as a way for he said that I could sell you to buy my way out. I could sell you, Victor, to buy my way out. So Victor tells him here to use his left hand, because it's not his dominant hand, right? And then he talks about how he sold him to Trafficant. And he's also making the exact same statement that Sergey and Cesar made, that I didn't want to. I hated it, but I figure I could sell you to buy my way out. You know, Trafficant is the only one of the whole group who doesn't say I didn't have a choice, that I didn't want to do it. I had no choice. I had to do it, right? Trafficant isn't the one who says this, but it is Sergey, it's Cesar, Alexei. These are the three people who are saying I had no other choice. Even Bethesda at the end says, she doesn't even say I didn't have a choice. I didn't want to do it. I hated to do it. She doesn't even say that. So Bethesda and Trafficant are somewhat the same in their character. So Victor is basically going to allow Alexei to leave, because he looks at the picture of his family and his wife and kids, and so he wants to let him live. Now remember, this is the same Victor who let the journalist live, that he cares so much about the journalist and her willingness to parent her own child that he was willing to let her go. And it would have been interesting if all of the other people around him did him the exact same way, right? But they didn't. And so knowing that he has a family, and knowing that he has a narrative history with Bethesda and a possible narrative future with her, he lets Alexei go, right? And he says, essentially, if I have to come back here, I will kill you. So here's the picture of Alexei and his family, his wife with the child. And then there's a cut back to the interview. And so we are now finishing the interview, and they have their conversation. Then Victor is going to get up and give the interviewer the ring, and then bring back Bethesda. All right, like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more discussions. You can visit my YouTube channel for further film analysis. It's Favorites Film Analysis as the title of the channel. You can always send me an email and ask me a question, reginayfavorites@yahoo.com. My Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction book will become available around October 2021. I'm still doing some editing. The book does not focus on film analyses, but I use the content that I created for the book to support my my perceptions of setback used as a theme in select films. So when the book becomes available, I will send out a notification, video, audio. Thank you very much for visiting the channel.